What's going on, agents? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and I hope you are all doing well out there and staying safe. Now, this is the second in a three-part series of responses to a Division 2 Reddit questionnaire concerning an upcoming update. And just in case you missed episode 1, I will leave a link in the video description below, and I encourage you all to check out that video. And as always, if you like this style of dedicated Division content, please take just a second to smash that sub button, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from my YouTube channel. And with that, let's begin. As I just stated, this is the second video I'm creating as a response to the Reddit thread created by Joker Unique, aimed at a post-Title Update 9, possibly Title Update 10 gaming environment. Now, this thread contains some very specific questions concerning topics surrounding the state of the game, and they are broken out into 3 categories. Today, I will be touching on some of the questions within the second topic of rewards, progression, loot quality, and vendors. And through editing, I've been able to compress this script, as it was originally approaching the 45-minute mark, and that's just way too long. So starting off, the first question within this topic is as follows. How is the character progression for you? And at least in my mind, this comes down to 2 distinct areas that I need to answer. The first portion of this response is directed towards the initial progression of an agent from level 0 up to World Tier 5, and this is one of the real strengths of the entire game. The overall progression system is well thought out and incrementally moves your agent through the level ups and mission settings. Through the interaction of the differing main missions, side missions, and open world activities, a fresh agent is presented with more than enough content and the ability to consistently acquire higher level gear, all in an attempt to complete the next mission. The world tier system, like the initial 1 to 30 grind, is engaging and fulfilling. It really takes all the knowledge that an agent has learned during the main missions and then compresses them into short bursts of acquiring XP and gear so that they can complete the stronghold and unlock the next world tier. Now, all of this, at least in my opinion, is well done and is one of the core strengths of the game. Now, where this progression system seems to take a turn for the worse is when an agent reaches World Tier 5, as it seemingly loses all direction and turns progression into an unrewarding slog of a grind. Endgame is a constant playing and replaying of the same missions over and over in an attempt to find incrementally better loot. Gone are the incentives to level up for the next world tier, and instead we are now slowly leveling up through shade points. Now, at its core, this system initially looks great, but once you see how much effort it requires to reach level 1000 and then how it abruptly ends there, it becomes a real letdown. Moving on through this Reddit thread, and the next item to discuss is the following question. Is the content you do rewarding? What is not, and why? And my response to this question is a real mixed bag of feelings, as my initial thoughts were to just answer no and move along to the next item, but after some thoughts and revisions, I decided to elaborate. Now, the missions themselves are beautifully designed, and I do get enjoyment out of interacting with them. But let's be honest here, you, like me, are running through this content for the loot, the rewards, and in that department, I don't find them particularly rewarding. Now, I do get large amounts of XP for completing the missions or by clearing landmarks in the Dark Zone, but honestly, the loot is what I am after, and it is extremely difficult to find anything close to what I am looking for. Now, in terms of rewarding and NPC combat, playing through missions or the open world on heroic difficulty can be challenging, but not because the NPCs are coming at me in huge mobs or using advanced flanking techniques. They are just extremely buffed up to withstand millions of hit points of incoming damage, while their own damage output is increased to match. I mean, it's not really rewarding to down these targets, just more of a completion and move along type feeling, and for a game this expansive and elaborate, that is not the type of emotions I should be getting. So next up in this questionnaire is a particular issue I really feel needs addressing, with that question being, does the loot and heroic or legendary content motivate you? If not, what would? This question, in this form, is really easy to answer. No, I am not motivated by the loot and heroic or legendary content. Now, I personally play the hardest difficulties in the game for the loot. I want the best loot this game has to offer, and I feel that by completing heroics or legendary missions, I should have a higher percentage at receiving said loot. Instead, my character inventory is too often flooded by an avalanche of mid-rolled gear and weaponry. And I just want to say this here and now. Purple gear should not be showing up anywhere or at any time if a player is playing on heroic global settings or in a heroic or legendary mission. If someone is competent enough to tackle a level 4 control point on heroic, then the loot should be a minimum of high end, with no exception. I mean, I've lost track of how many times I have opened caches on legendary missions to be met by a mediocre purple weapon with a weapon talent that doesn't match the archetype. The loot drop mechanics are just too randomized, as a player playing the same mission as me but on challenge difficulty has just as much chance as I do to loot extremely well-rolled gear, all while playing on 2 difficulty settings less than I am attempting. Now, there needs to be a minimum attribute roll mechanic installed into the game that guarantees a player a certain roll for their difficulty settings. The higher the difficulty attempted, the better the odds are that the loot drops will be of higher and higher difficulty, and please, no more purples ever on heroic or legendary. Not from caches, not from the loot boxes, and not from NPCs. The next topic is as follows. What content do you skip because it does not feel rewarding? And just off the top of my head, I've got to say, Kinley College. Now, I played it through when it first launched. I enjoyed it, collected my diamond back, and truthfully, I've never gone back. I mean, once you get all the collectibles, there's really no motivation to return to that area of the map. In addition, Camp White Oak, Manning National Zoo, and the Coney Island maps are portions of the game I only attempt if they have targeted loot that I am looking for, and it's a real shame. They have some of the most unique and beautifully designed arenas in the game, but the missions are really long, and I can farm much more efficiently in other areas of DC or New York. I also complete the invaded missions on a regular basis, but will skip Tidal Basin for the exact reasons I skip Kinley College. I don't seem to get any better loot than I currently have, and I already have all the collectibles, and the overall mission is just way too long. And finally, I do not play Conflict, as it is just not rewarding and really offers me no enjoyment. Pressing forwards, and this next topic has a rather long intro question of, with the mechanics like targeted loot, seasons, specific loot sources for exotics in place, is that enough to have good character progression, or do you see improvements? Well, first off, I don't link any of these to good character progression, so in that case, I believe that all of it needs improvement. Now, in theory, targeted loot works, but in practical use, it still needs improvements. The entire system adds another layer of RNG onto a loot system, and a game for that matter, that is entirely based on RNG. I mean, I often find that I get new and somewhat more interesting gear pieces by just playing the game. When I do attempt to use the targeted loot system as intended, I often loot a piece of Hana U or Wyvern with skill tier and 2 red attributes, or a marksman rifle that I could actually do something with, but I need to recal the headshot damage to maximum, and it has close and personal as the weapon talent. I rotate between 8 to 10 builds, and I can't remember the last time I found anything that really changed my build for the better when I've really attempted to use the targeted loot system to my advantage, as it's just too erratic. Seasons are quite frankly not inspiring and add another level of grind into an already grindy game, and the loot that I do get from completing season objectives is no better than I find in missions or the open world. Now, the only reason I complete the season task are for the vanity items, and even then, they really aren't worth the hours needed for full completion. Seasons really need to have gear and weaponry awards that are exclusive to that season versus items that are already in the loot pool. Now, I know there are perfect versions of the weaponry that you get as rewards, but even then, they aren't really inspiring, as the talents are ever so slightly better than a non-perfect version, and the attribute rolls are completely RNG based. Too often I have grinded through the season or GE only to receive a cache, open it, and get a mediocre piece of gear or weaponry that serves my builds no gain. Now, as far as the specific loot sources for exotics, I've had little to no success with this mechanic. Targeted loot works with DC exotics, but does not apply to the New York offerings, so the newest and hottest items like the Bullet King and the Imperial Dynasty holster are tied to specific missions, and they drop at insanely low rates. I ran the Stranded Tanker mission going on 40 to 50 times before I finally got the Imperial Dynasty holster to drop, and I've never seen it drop on the Pathway Park mission. Now, personally, I prefer the objective and task-based exotic gear quests that require components to craft versus just waiting for gear and weaponry to drop based on RNG. Vendors have proven extremely underwhelming, and this next topic of, are you happy where the vendors currently are, or what can be improved, is a hot topic. Now, other than the past clan vendor hopping exploits, I don't think there is anyone in the Division community that feels that vendors and their offerings are in a solid state. So first off, Vendors in World Tier 5 should never be offering purple gear or weaponry for sale. I mean, what purpose would they serve anyone that is at a gear score 500 and upwards? Secondly, the gear that they do offer is below anything that can be found in the open world or mission loot drops. I mean, vendors need to have one gear piece that is truly worth a look. Some piece that gives agents a reason to engage with the vendor economy. Even Cassie Mendoza, the gun runner, seems to offer gear and weaponry that really doesn't measure up, and in order to even find her, you have to go through this whole process of several steps and waiting period before she even appears. Now, I'm not saying that all the gear items for sale need to be of superior quality, but having at least one item for sale each week that could benefit an agent's build is a step in the right direction. And the final topic for this thread reads as follows. With TU8, the amount of loot that you get was lowered. Did this improve the experience, or how could it be changed now after TU9? And while I do appreciate that loot is just no longer falling like rain, it really hasn't altered the overall experience. Loot drops are still completely based on RNG and require an agent to sift through and find that one needle in a haystack. In fact, it feels to me that the attribute rolls have been lowered across the board, although I have no proof of this, so when I do get loot to drop, I'm already reserved to the fact that it will not be of superior quality, and I'm going to have to break it down for mats or just sell it. RNG is not a bad thing, but when it is overly punishing and rewards players in exceedingly small amounts, it seriously detracts from the overall gaming experience. I think this is a great place to end this discussion, and I can finish it off in tomorrow's upload. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts in the comments section below. If you haven't done so already, please smash that sub button and don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from my YouTube channel. If you liked the video, please rate it with a thumbs up, if not, with a thumbs down. If you feel like supporting my full-time YouTube content creation, please look in the video description for links to my Patreon and Teespring merchandise store. Follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts concerning most things gaming related, with a heavy emphasis on the Division franchise. And until my next upload, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.